Is Reason Revolution. I'm your host, Justin Clark. Thank you so much for joining us this week. This week, I spoke with skeptic and author Guy P. Harrison. He has written several books, including 50 Popular Beliefs That People Think Are True, Think, Why You Should Question Everything, and his forthcoming work, Think Before You Like, Social Media's Effect on the Brain and the Tools You Need to Navigate Your Newsfeed. We had a great conversation about how we came to skepticism, the pitfalls of our brains, how critical thinking can improve our lives, the impact of social media on our ability to reason, and the future of skepticism. I'm beyond thrilled and honored to share this conversation with you. Harrison's passion and command of his field is inspiring, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Guy P. Harrison. Guy P. Harrison, how's it going, sir?
Going great. Happy to be with you, Justin. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. I'm looking forward to getting into all the different fields of study that you work on in your various books and your blogs, and especially your newest book that's going to be upcoming soon about social media. But before we get into a little bit of that, how did you get to skepticism, and kind of what was your upbringing like, and what kind of led you down this path?
Yeah, that's a great question. I get asked it all the time in interviews, and I always struggle with the answer, because it's complex. I think part of the answer is that I was kind of lucky in a way, because I think I was a very curious child, and almost every child is curious, but I think I had a little bit of extra curiosity in me. I was always wondering about things. I was always imagining things. I was always questioning things. I was always trying to figure things out. I just had this good, healthy sense of curiosity about the world, people, everything around me. And I think that fortunately led me to being sort of a kind of a natural skeptic. I can remember as a very young child, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, being dragged to church by well-meaning parents or whatever, and sitting in the pew and hearing these stories, the preachers telling these stories about the great flood or something like that. And a question that just constantly echoed inside my head was, how does he know that? That's extraordinary. How the heck can he be sure that's true? I always had these kind of questions. And I grew up in the American South, and also it wasn't really polite to ask those questions out loud. So I rarely did as a child, but they were in my head, always had these questions. And then I sort of just fell in love with history and science and then anthropology, loved books, documentaries, that kind of thing, and just had this really consistent hunger for knowledge. I just found it interesting, fascinating, fun, to learn stuff. And that never went away. I never outgrew any of that. I remember, I'll tell you one little quick incident that might have nudged me along the road to being what I consider to be a critical thinker, a good skeptic, constructive skeptic, is remember Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Däniken, this guy back in the 70s. It was a big deal. I was a little kid, and there was actually a documentary made based on his books, or his original best-selling book. And for anybody who doesn't know, Chariots of the God, the whole basic claim is that, we humans far too stupid to have ever done things like build pyramids and big temples and all that. So clearly it had to be aliens who came down and showed us how to carve, stone blocks and stack them up and stuff. So his whole thesis was that we were visited by aliens in prehistoric times, ancient times, and they sort of steered and influenced our civilization. So anyway, I saw this documentary, cold, hadn't read the book, but I saw it on TV, and it blew me away. It freaked me out. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Wow, this is amazing. I mean, why isn't everybody going nuts, running around in the streets, excited about this? This is unbelievable. Aliens were here on Earth doing all this stuff. This is amazing. And then by sheer luck, I'll forever be thankful. I don't know if you've heard of the program Nova on PBS, still running today.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Great science program. I encourage everyone to watch it, especially kids.
There was one that was a few years ago. Actually, it's probably close to a decade ago now, that Neil deGrasse Tyson did, called Origins, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful series.
Yeah, that was a special one. Yeah, they did. But just by luck, within that same general span of time when I was kind of all these, when I was kind of, I wasn't becoming a Chariots of the God fanatic or anything. It was, I was more interested in Little League Baseball trying to get a hit or whatever than I was really thinking about Chariots of the Gods. But still, it really blew my mind that this thing, because it had impressive people giving sound bites on screen, like grown-ups wearing ties, some of them with impressive titles. So, me as a 10-year-old kid, I'm going like, wow, it must be true. It's on TV. And so anyway, but luckily I saw this Nova episode that just shredded the whole claim. They just analyzed it, they explained it all the way using real archaeologists. And I watched that and I went, well, wait a minute, hold on. So I get it. You mean not everything on TV is true, and not everything that adults say is necessarily accurate. And just because a guy has a tie on and he might have a PhD doesn't necessarily mean he's right about everything. Wow, lesson learned. So that was one little moment that I think probably helped me along the way. But there have been many things. I mean, I've always been fascinated with religion. I mean, because I've seen amazing things with religion, extremely intelligent people believing the most nonsensical, like unbelievable stuff, 100% conviction that it's true. And to this day, that still fascinates me, but that the human brain can do that, the compartmentalization, the weird conflict that can exist within a human mind. I mean, it's just bizarre to me, really is endlessly fascinating. But yeah, it all just comes out of just curiosity and the urge to learn. I think if you're a curious person and you really want to learn, and if you're brave enough, honest enough to face up to what you find when you look at the evidence and when you think long and hard about things, if you're brave enough and honest enough to face it, then I think, a lot of beliefs, a lot of claims are going to just wither and die throughout your life along the path.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I had a very similar experience when I was younger. My dad and I were one night. I was like 14. I was like, I think I was in between seventh and eighth grade. I was in eighth grade already, and my dad and I, we were at this like video store. It was back when video stores were still in existence. For those who are too young to remember what those are, and they were selling off their DVDs because I think the company was like going under or whatever. But anyway, they had this DVD set. It was 3 DVDs, and it just had the most amazing title. And my dad and I bought it. We took it home, and it was Penn and Teller Bullshit.
Oh yeah,
And
good
and
series.
and my dad and I bought it thinking it was magic because we didn't know, and we bought it, and it's this like amazing show about
Right.
critical thinking and skepticism and sort of second guessing common notions in our culture and things like that. And I was absolutely just sucked into it. I'm kind of like you. I was always born sort of a natural skeptic. I always sort of was skeptical and was I didn't grow up really religious, and my parents weren't religious, so I was always kind of a questioner. But watching that show was pretty amazing, and through that I got into James Randi. And James
Oh yeah.
Randi was an immense influence on me. And then from him, I got into like Martin Gardner and other people, and sort of the, Michael Shermer and sort of the professional skeptics, if you will. Those who, Joe Nickel is another one. People who like debunk some of the things you were talking about, like the Chariots of the Gods, or, the Bermuda Triangle, or the fairies that you've probably heard of the classic story about the fairies and Arthur Conan
Oh yeah.
Doyle
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all those kinds of stories, and Houdini and stuff
Right.
like that. And I always thought this was like really cool that to look at the world as clearly as possible and trying to for your own sense of knowledge about the world to be as most accurate against what the world is such a
Mhm.
radical concept to people. And that was what I thought really appealed to me. It was like these people are kind of sifting through craziness to try to get to the heart of what really is true. And so that really always compelled me. I've sort of never looked back. They
Wow.
always, so that's kind of like my foray into skepticism.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you made it, man.
Well, thank you. Thank
Because
you.
listen, honestly, people still, I forever feel the obligation to say this, as many times as I can, that being a good constructive skeptic, being a committed, consistent critical thinker, as best you can be. No one's perfect, but doing the best you can, caring enough to try to be somewhere in the vicinity of truth and reality, just making that effort is a beautiful thing, because it cleans your life out of a lot of nonsense, a lot of dangerous stuff, a lot of waste, inefficiency. It sets you up to live a fuller, more productive, safer life when you try to just think and apply your brain as best you can. No guarantees. I mean, we can all still have terrible things happen to us. We can all believe, we all do believe silly things, but I always say the difference is in how many silly things you believe and how silly they are. That's what separates us. So you want to be toward the more rational side of the spectrum for our species. Because, man, it's crazy out there.
It certainly is. And kind of piggybacking off of that, you've kind of remarked in the past that a lack of critical thinking is what you describe as the world's great unrecognized crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Why do you think it's unrecognized, and what can we do to be more cognizant of it?
Two reasons. One is just flat out plain ignorance. People just don't think about it. They don't, the idea is not put before them. It never comes up. But probably a more subtle, like underlying reason that it's so unrecognized is because it's uncomfortable for people, because it challenges them. I mean, once you've emotionally invested in something like, extreme nationalism or religion or whatever it is, it can, and I sympathize. I understand. I'm not blasé about this. It's the difficult thing to change your mind. It's a difficult thing to challenge an important belief that you hold. You may have held since childhood, as long as you can remember. You may be wrapped up tight in a network of like-minded people who believe the same things you do. So to challenge that can rock your whole world. And we are social creatures, humans. We're primates. We need each other. So I do not underestimate the difficulties involved in doing it. I still think it's worthwhile, but it's a tough thing to do. And so, that's that's really the main reason that it's just not so widespread, where everybody's questioning everything. But and I call it our great crisis, the great unrecognized crisis, because it really is a terrible thing. Not only is it unrecognized, but it's global, and it is deep. It is horrifying. That if we could come up with a death toll, some measure estimate of the suffering and deaths every year that are directly, or at least significantly indirectly tied to poor thinking skills, to lack of skepticism, it would be staggering. It would be in the millions, no doubt. It would dwarf terrorism. I mean, many diseases. It would shock people. And in fact, I'm kind of been wrestling with that in my head, trying to come up with a way to really illustrate it to people how severe it is. I touched on it in my book, Good Thinking, a previous book. I talked about this in this one section, trying to communicate just how bad this is, and I've seen it. I've traveled on 6 continents, more than 30 countries. I've interviewed people all over the world, who believe just about everything you can imagine. And I've seen the suffering up close. I have seen poor people spend their last dollar on a complete quack cure that may give them a little bit of hope, but it will definitely not give them any medicinal value. Placebo effect is the best thing they could hope for. And I've seen, I've been in a stadium with thousands of people swooning at the feet of Benny Hinn as he placed his hand on the face of a woman and cured her of AIDS, so he claimed.
Oh, wow. That must have been a surreal experience.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. Let me be completely accurate. He did not claim he cured her. He claimed that the Lord cured her through him. So, just to be fair to him,
That's fair.
He did deny that he had the power. He was merely the conduit or whatever. So, I don't want to misrepresent the guy.
For sure.
But yeah, I've seen, and I've seen the, his minions. Listen to this bias in me. His workers work the crowd with, not with collection plates, but with literal full-size plastic garbage cans.
Oh my God.
Yes, I was shocked. And they filled them up with cash and checks. And they had people walking the aisles with credit card scanners. If you prefer credit cards, they could accommodate that. And they just,
wow.
It's just a real smooth, I think it's worse. I saw this out of the U.S. I think it's worse in other countries than probably in the U.S. I think he tones it down a bit in the U.S. But man, it was amazing. But anyway, yeah, there's so much going on. A lot of people, many people, just have minor inconveniences, minor losses in their life, which aren't necessary, and they can't add up over a lifetime. How much time does an astrology believer waste reading their horoscope, every day when you add it up over a lifetime? How much time does a person waste going to a chiropractor to get their back cracked because they think that is going to cure their migraine headaches or something? I mean, how much time and money is wasted, on homeopathic medicine? How much time and money is wasted on your knees talking to an imaginary friend, up in the sky who's not even there, most likely? We pay a huge price, and many people pay it with their lives.
Yeah.
People die. Bob Marley, one of my favorite singers, Bob Marley, he had cancer on his toe, and if it had been treated aggressively early, he would have lived another 30 years probably and had another 20 albums,
Yeah.
But he died young.
Same could be argued about Steve Jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mentioned that in one of my books. Yeah, but yeah, people waste time on alternative medicine, medical quackery, and sometimes they end up dying for it. Steve Jobs, at the end of his life, he admitted, "Damn, I blew it." That's in his biography by Walter Isaacson. That he admitted he believes that he did waste time that could have been used doing, some kind of medical science on him that might have saved his life. As he was, I think it was spiritual healing or something he was into.
That's such a bummer because he was such an unparalleled genius in one way, in terms of like technology and the evolving of a modern corporation, all these things, and he was sort of a genius in that regard. He was sort of a modern Andrew Carnegie, but yet he had this other side to him that sadly led to the decline of his health.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I get it. I mean, I get the whole spiritual yearning and all that. I mean, I feel it too. I don't deny it. I'm not a Vulcan. I'm very emotional. I look up at the night sky. I see stars. I look at the full moon. I feel stuff. I feel it. I walk in a forest. I mean, I am floating around. I'm like I'm not a cold-hearted person without those same human yearnings that very religious people have, But the difference is I'm not willing to pretend I know things I don't know. I'm not willing to sacrifice my intelligence for my emotions. I let one complement the other. That's the way I look at it. I try to live well with both working. I don't just shut one off so that I can feel good. I don't pretend to know that someone hears my prayers, or hears my wishes, because it just doesn't make any sense. Sure, maybe somebody's up there listening, but there is zero evidence for it. So why would I believe it? And one thing I always tell religious people and people that believe, the kind of the standard irrational things is, yeah, it could be true. Maybe it is, but there's no reason to believe it. So maybe you should recalibrate your position, maybe hope that it's true and stop saying that it's true, because at least that's a much more sensible position, and it will kind of reel you in to more realistic life. If you can say, I hope I go to heaven when I die, instead of saying, I know when I go to heaven I'm going to die and I have no doubt about that, and going around and trying to convince everybody of that, when there's zero evidence for the existence of such a place. I mean, zero good evidence. And I just think it's not that hard. Once people start exploring it, they'll find that it's not that hard to be a reality-based critical thinker, And as a human being, let's be fair, let's be honest here. As a human being, the way the human brain works, you will have one foot in fantasy land for the rest of your life, regardless. I do, you do, we all do.
Yeah.
It's just the problem is too many people have, both feet in fantasy land or 1.5 feet in fantasy land. But if you're a hardworking, constructive skeptic, good critical thinker, you will at least be able to keep one foot solidly planted in something that is pretty close to reality. And that's doing pretty well as a human being.
I totally agree. And one of the things that I think people yearn for is they sort of yearn for something outside of themselves, something bigger than them.
Yeah.
And my friend and I, my friend Tyler Lovins, who is my friend and collaborator on this podcast with me, we did an episode a while back where we sort of talked about sort of the social and emotional aspects of religion, because I think a lot of people stay in religion not necessarily for the beliefs. I think a lot of them stay in for like the community and the potlucks on Sundays and like the emotional feelings they get from being with other people, and we have to find some ways to be able to sort of replace that for some people. Now that stuff doesn't necessarily appeal to me because like I never went to church, so I don't really care about any of that, but some people do. And I think the issue is like I don't think religion has a monopoly on like community and meaningful relationships and charity. And so I think that sort of advocating for critical thinking is one of the biggest steps to getting us to a world where we can advocate for a more secular and humanistic worldview that can sort of replace religion for people in a way that's satisfying for them, not just intellectually but emotionally, which is I think one of the harder things to do.
We definitely need it. I mean, I mentioned earlier, we are social animals, we need it, and we miss our hunter gatherer days. Humankind, we spent 99.999% of our existence in small groups of 50, 100 people, tightly bound together, relying on one another all the time, knowing each other intimately, uh, loving, liking, caring about pretty much everyone there. I'm sure there were conflicts, but overall, the group had to work together or they would perish. And we don't have that anymore. That's one of the reasons combat is such a difficult thing to get over, for us soldiers to get over. It's not just all the killing and the danger. One of the things they miss, they'll tell you, is that bond they have with their fellow soldiers in a tough, challenging, scary situation. They rely on one another. They're there for each other. And when they get back into this world, where everybody just kind of does their own thing, goes their own way, they miss it. They feel a big void, and it's a real problem for humans. We need to sort that out. And I guess religion answers that need to a degree, but my argument would be it can be answered in better ways that don't require you to live in fantasy land and surrender your brain in the way you have to do in so many instances within religions. It's interesting. Jewish people seem to be figuring this out. There's so many secular Jews now that they're Jewish. They have the camaraderie with fellow Jews, the rituals, traditions, and all that. They meet, they get together. But if you take a poll in the room, like none of them actually believe in a God. It's amazing. And they're all there.
It really is.
Together. Yeah, it really is fascinating.
It is, and there is. It's small, but there is a growing movement of people who are very interested in sort of creating secular avenues of that as well. So, like, you've heard of things like Sunday Assembly, or Oasis is another version of this. And I know some other people have done some really interesting work. I mean, I know that I'm trying to remember his name, Greg Epstein at Harvard, who's the humanist chaplain. Yep. Bart Campolo out in California, who's trying to do some of this stuff, and of course Phil Zuckerman as well. And so they're trying to think about ways in which we live in sort of a post-religion society, because despite the craziness we see in our country in terms of the evangelicals or whatever, the long-term trend is that we're becoming more like Europe, and that we're becoming more secular. More and more people are sort of ticking the box of none when it comes to religious affiliation. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're skeptics or they're critical thinkers or atheists, but it basically says like, hey, I'm not really into this organized religion stuff. And so my thinking of the subject is we need to come up with tools and ways of being able to sort of let those people know, hey, it's okay to not believe in myths and superstitions, and it's okay to live a life that's rewarding and fulfilling and happy, that's based solely on your own freedom of mind and your own freedom of thought, and so that's very important to me. But I'm going to kind of parlay this into my next question, because we've talked a lot about how people can can lack critical thinking and this and that and the other. So you've done a lot of really interesting research and about psychology and how it relates to us, our everyday lives and things like that. So I guess my next couple of questions are, how do our brains fail us? And what are some common pitfalls in our thinking?
Oh gosh, how many hours do you have here? uh, are you know probably the most, if I was giving advice to somebody and trying to convince them that they need to be on guard against their own brain, not hate your own brain, but be on guard against it, use it well, not be fooled by it. I would say start with understanding the evolutionary history of the human brain. Understand how it came together, where it evolved, when it evolved. Right now we are all walking around with these big, impressive, powerful brains that can do so much. But guess what? They're still pretty much prehistoric brains that are structured in a way, function in a way that would probably work best in a prehistoric African environment. And here we are running around in Manhattan and San Francisco and London and Paris with these brains. And I think once you learn a bit about that, I wrote about this extensively in my book, Good Thinking, but once you learn about this, you start to realize, you go, okay, I see. So my brain is really just trying to keep me alive from moment to moment. And it's making all sorts of shortcuts and assumptions, and it's going with, so-called gut instincts, and it's trying to help me out. And memory doesn't work as some sort of court stenographer in my brain. Memory is just there to sort of get me through the next situation, to help me plan a little bit and help me kind of get a head start on where I need to be in the next moment. It's not giving me an accurate retelling of the past. I can't rely on it in that way. Once you understand these kind of things, you start to see, you say, okay, my brain is not perfect for the things I need to do in the modern world, but it's still pretty damn awesome. It is a profoundly awesome, powerful thinking machine. But I got to be careful about it. I got to use it well. I got to second guess myself constantly. I have to rethink every conclusion. I have to question everything constantly, because my brain, especially my subconscious brain, which is like 99% of your actual mind, is just feeding me stuff constantly, trying to help me out, not trying to trip me up, but in feeding me quick information all the time. It's doing me a disservice many times. It's leading me down the wrong path. For example, you, Justin, when you meet a stranger, you reach out and shake that stranger's hand. You, the nice guy, Justin, that you are, you're willing to have an open mind. You want to get to know this person before you draw any conclusions. You don't care about their height or their skin color or their gender or their nationality. You want to judge this person on whether or not they're good or bad based on how they behave, because you're a great guy. Well, guess what, Justin? I hate to break it to you, but you've got this other mind living in your head, which is taking up most of the real estate inside your head. And that mind is feeding you immediate judgments on this person. Are they intimidating? Is this person intimidating and possibly a threat? Should I be a little bit on guard, a little cold to this person? Is this person sexually attractive? Should I slow down my speech pattern and be a little seductive? Maybe something might happen here. Should I not trust this person because I associate their accent with something I saw, not you, but your subconscious remembers in a movie about these people, and they were all untrustworthy in this movie I saw when I was a teenager. So therefore, I better not trust this person. That's the kind of thing your subconscious mind will do to you in the moment. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this situation where you just don't trust that person. And then your conscious mind, that little 1 or 2% of your brain there, will suddenly start defending that position and coming up with all these rational, quote, rational reasons why you shouldn't trust that person. And you'll start looking for reasons why you can't trust this person, when it's all based on because you saw some dumb movie as a teenager and it prejudiced you against people with that kind of an accent or something. You never even knew it. Don't remember it, don't realize it. But here you are, confirmation bias in full swing, building a case against this person you just met. You're not going to trust them. So just that's an example of what happens to us all the time. So you have to constantly question yourself, challenge yourself all the time. Just remember that you've got a great thinking machine but it is far from infallible. And in fact, it will make mistakes constantly. And the good news is, though, for all the problems of a human brain, guess what? The human brain is the solution. It's the problem and the answer. You can use it vigorously to combat these problems. You can apply the scientific method in your life daily, to your interactions, your purchases, when you're shopping. You can whip out a micro version of the scientific method and apply it, when you're buying a car or you're meeting somebody, whatever, seriously, you can do that. You can be a scientist in your regular life all the time. And that scientific process can help you cut through all the craziness and nonsense and the misleading information that's inevitably going to clutter your thoughts.
I think it's so great that you bring that up. I had a very recent experience where earlier this week where my father and we went to the AT&T store, and he needed to like change things because he had recently moved and he needed to get internet access. And so he saw an ad for it in the newspaper, like a deal or whatever. We go to the AT&T store, and the guy says, well, we don't offer Wi-Fi coverage there, but we can do this other thing. And so I was like, okay. And that was really the moment where it kicked in. I started asking questions about, okay, I'm happy to do this. Okay, this little asterisk here down in this ad says that this little rebate on the monthly bill doesn't start until 3 billing cycles. Is it really 3? When will this start showing up? What kind of fees are we talking here? Like it's because I remember when my family and I got our smartphones for the first time a few years ago, and the first bill that we got was like enormous, and my dad flipped out. And it was one of those where he was like, I want to avoid this the second time around. So we go in and I asked like a million questions and was like, how about this? How about this? What will this look like? And the guy who helped us, he put it all kind of in writing and wrote it down and made sure that whatever. So, you have to do those kinds of things, because it's not that like the AT&T store guy is bad, but like salespeople take advantage of people's lack of asking questions. And I know that because I worked in retail for 5 years, and we did that all the time. And I feel totally shamed. I feel shameful about it, but it's true. And so I think that's the one thing we need to educate people with too. And I think you do a great job with your work, and hopefully I can do it with mine, is to show people that like using reason and critical thinking and skepticism isn't just something you do with like highfalutin concepts about like life, the universe, and everything, as Douglas Adams would say it. But it's about everyday stuff.
Oh yeah,
like when you
down
go to the
in
grocery
trenches,
store,
man. You gotta have it in the trenches of daily life.
Absolutely,
You gotta have it. I'll tell you an
sure.
example recently. I'm not embarrassed to tell you. One of the things I always preach is humility. If you're an arrogant skeptic, you ain't doing it right. You got to be humble. You got to understand your vulnerabilities. And listen to this. Just recently, I went in a grocery store, and I wanted to get like a granola bar, and then they had this sign on the shelf, and it said special, like 10 for $1. I mean, excuse me, 10 for $10. And I thought, oh, I don't want that many, but damn, that's a good deal. There's $10 for 10 of them. So I grabbed 10 of them. I went to the checkout. After I paid and walked away, I looked down and noticed they were $1 each. It was no deal. They were $1 each. I only wanted 2 or 3. I could have bought 2 or 3 for $2 or $3, but because I saw 10 for $10, it completely, the mission accomplished on the marketing. My subconscious mind, I wasn't thinking, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I guess that's a good deal. And I didn't even think of the possibility that you weren't obligated to buy 10 to get the rate of 1 bar per dollar. So I just did it. It was stupid. I could have bought 2 or 3. I wasted basically $7 on a bunch of damn granola bars I didn't really need, So,
oh yeah.
It can happen to anybody. That's why I say, I mean, that was no big disaster. It was $10, but the same thing. You go buy a TV. You go to Best Buy to buy a new television. they're going to have these super expensive ones on the ends that are just outrageously expensive, and you're going to think, well, I can't afford that, that's too much. And then you look at the cheap ones on the end and you think, well, I don't want to get just a crappy TV. And then so you inevitably 99% of people gravitate to the middle. And guess what? It's no coincidence, but that's where the most profitable TVs inevitably are. And this is a standard practice in, marketing everywhere and all kind of business. So I'm not picking on TV people or anything.
Sure.
Everybody does it. They know that most people are going to gravitate toward that middle zone because they don't want to buy the most expensive thing. They don't want to buy the cheapest, crappiest item. So they're going to buy something in the middle. And that inevitably is where the highest profit items are. That's why the high profit items in grocery stores are on the end caps, in department stores, the things at the end of the aisles, most visible and all. That's where they don't put the best deals there. They don't put the best stuff. They put the stuff that makes them the most money there. Eye level. You're in a grocery store. The things at eye level, not the best for you, not the best deal, the most profitable. It's they're making money by exploiting these subconscious things that are going on with all these people everywhere. Got to think. You have to think.
You're absolutely right. It reminds me, I remember a few years ago, I watched this CNBC documentary about Walmart. And they made this point about how, on average, if you look at the average item at Walmart, it's not that radically cheaper than anywhere else. But what they tend to do is they will sort of, in parlance of what you mentioned earlier, they'll put the stuff that they mark down heavily, towards the front so that you can see it. And then people will buy that stuff. So a lot of people will just sort of infer that, well, if this stuff's really cheaper, everything else must be cheaper. So I come in and do it anyway. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting thing about how all of that works. And it reminds me of how, I remember reading this story a while back about a really cutting edge. It may have been in one of Robert Sapolsky's lectures I was listening to, the neuroscientist. He was talking about how there was a guy who was a cutting edge psychologist in the 1950s and 60s who left academia and went to work on Madison Avenue as an advertising guy because he parlayed his knowledge of psychology into advertising. I don't think that's any surprise. I think that's rather interesting.
Right. It's a good match.
It is a very, very good match. So let's parlay into talking about your newest book coming out soon. Think Before You Like, Social Media's Effect on the Brain and the Tools You Need to Navigate Your Newsfeed. Very good. I think a very timely book, especially. And it's all about applying what we've talked about, critical thinking, skepticism, to our lives on the internet. Without giving too much of the book away, give a tease, if you will. What are some of the basic tools that we can use to help be better critical thinkers while using Twitter or Facebook or any kind of social media?
Yeah, well, the main thing I would say is that you just got to remember you're a human being with all these vulnerabilities, all these quirks and surprising features and processes of the human mind. It doesn't all go away when you go online, and in many ways you become even more vulnerable, because you're up against a lot. People need to be aware of this. I mean, I was shocked with the research, the interviews I did. I was really, shocked at what is really going on behind the curtain with social media. I mean, these big successful platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all, they are really, really manipulating people. It's amazing. And to be clear, I'm not condemning social media. I'm not anti-social media. I'm still on Facebook and stuff, but I'm much more savvy about it. The more I've learned, the more cautious I've become about what ways that these companies can addict me and manipulate me. And gosh, it's shocking. Some experts have compared it to slot machines in Las Vegas. Twitter, Facebook. They're designing these things to excite our subconscious minds and keep us thinking about them, keep us stuck, keep us getting these little variable rewards, that pop up, a like, a share, these kind of things. Sounds so trivial, right? You post a photo of your pet, okay, and then you get 10 likes. But guess what? I mean, I don't care how sophisticated and how mature you are, what your age is. You don't have to be a 13-year-old, little kid. You're going to be like, oh, 10 people like the photo of my cute little poodle or whatever. And then you check back later and 20 people like it. And you get a tiny little, dopamine kick in your brain. And then you check back later and then you're thinking about it and it's this weird addictive cycle that, I'm sure it's okay, it's fun, but is it worth hours and hours of your life every day as many people are spending? I'm not so sure, really need to assess that. You need to be careful because there are some very intelligent, very highly educated, sophisticated teams of people, hundreds, thousands of engineers that are working hard to figure out ways to addict you, to hook you, to keep you coming back to these platforms. Another thing that's crucial that people are aware of is that their private or so-called private lives are being harvested, in just unimaginable ways. Everything you do, everywhere you go, every purchase you make, everything you say, everything you type, like, share, it's all pretty much being harvested and stored, and much of it's sold, bartered off, to people you don't know. I give some pretty scary examples in the book. I mean, there are medical websites, helpful educational sites, family websites that are designed, you would think, just to be really cool and helpful about raising kids and all that. But on these sites, there are forms you fill out, give a little bit of information, and then you can ask some questions maybe, or give some comments about your situation, how many kids you have, your thoughts on raising children, whatever, or your medical condition if it's a medical site, what are your symptoms are, this kind of thing. Guess what? Many of these sites, they're just fronts. They're not into any kind of parenting game or health game. They just want your information, your address, your phone number, where you live, what you do, all that stuff, because they sell it. That's the commodity. You are the product. That's why all these things are free. There's a reason that Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're free for a reason. It's because you're paying them in some other way other than money. You're giving them your life, so you got to be more thoughtful about how much you put out there, because you're giving away more than you think you are, trust me. And it's a real problem. And I think, and then you got the fake news situation. I cover that extensively, how we can be so many people can be manipulated by outright lies and bogus claims and seemingly legitimate news stories, very easily to manipulate millions of people, as we saw with the election. I mean, it's still being sorted out, but my bottom line response to all that is that we can't really rely on government regulation to fix that, and we can't just leave it up to the billionaire owners of these social media platforms to fix it either. I say first and foremost, it comes down to you, the individual social media user, the Facebook person, the Twitter user, you guys, every one of you. You have to take care of yourself. Be a critical thinker. Be a skeptic. Pause. Think. Keep your emotions in check. When you're online, you're a sitting duck. If you're not thinking, you are going to be suckered left and right. So open your eyes and think. Use that big, powerful brain every moment you're on social media.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, one thing I remember hearing, and I guess it's sort of a cliche now, but I think it's true, is the idea that every time that you post something on social media, think of it as if you just bought a massive billboard that sits on the highway.
Yeah.
And that scores of people are going to see. And so like that's what I try to do when I'm thinking about what I'm posting on social media, especially over the last couple of years that I've gotten into sort of this space of podcasting and things like that. And I mostly these days use my social media for that. But I can tell you, man, there's a reason that these like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there's a reason that it scrolls. Like there's a reason, like that's where because you're absolutely right about that dopamine hit. Like every time I see notifications on my phone, there's something that happens in my brain. It makes me happy. And when a picture doesn't do as well, it makes me sad. The one other, I guess, little side question I had, because this is interesting to me. So I remember Sam Harris talking about this on a podcast with somebody about how because of social media and because of the amount of time and effort that goes into it, he finds himself having trouble with his attention span. He says that he's like, reading larger books is harder for me now than it was. And I have the same problem.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, I didn't really have a smartphone, was really that active on social media until about 4 years ago when I got my first iPhone. Before that, I had sort of a dumb phone and was not really on the online all that much. But when I got that phone, and ever since then, like my life is completely changed. It's remarkable how much this like will warp your life.
Yeah, you've got to take control. I mean, I discuss this extensively in the book, Think Before You Like, because if you don't, it will just, without you realizing it, it will creep into your life more and more and more. And before you know it, you're just sacrificing half your day to running around in circles on social media, and for whatever good you get out of it, it's not worth that. I mean, you've got better things you can do than just, you can do with your day than liking poodle pictures. So what you do is just be disciplined about it, be smart about it. And what I do, for example, when I sit down to write or to read, to seriously write or read, I zip my phone up on my computer bag. It's gone. It's out of sight. It's there if I need it, but it's just not within reach. Keep it out of reach, because your subconscious mind will not let you rest. It will not let you focus if that phone is nearby, because that phone represents your whole social network, other people, excitement, maybe some great email is there waiting, telling you just, grandma sent you money or something. So reach out, check it one more time, So you got to just put it away and zip it up, keep it out of reach, and make it somewhat difficult to get to, put it in a pocket that requires a little bit of effort, because that conscious effort of getting up out of your chair and having to reach across the table and unzip your computer bag to reach in and grab it, doing all that sort of wakes you up. Your conscious mind has to confront the fact that, look, what's so important? Why are you doing this? Why did you just stop reading or writing? Why did you get up to reach over and stick your hand in this computer bag and get your phone? What happened? And when you consciously confront that, more times than not, you're going to say, hey, whoa, what am I doing? Sit back down, go back to work. Whatever's there, it'll wait another hour. It's no big deal. So I'm telling you got to get control of it. And again, I'm not one of these people that says, smartphones are destroying America's youth and social media is, the devil's tool and we should ban it. I think it can be used for fun and for good practical uses, but you absolutely must be disciplined about it and thoughtful about it.
That's one thing I've been trying to do more and more with myself, is just, because, I can remember times like when I was in college, like when I was an undergrad, I didn't have a smartphone. And because, I didn't take summer classes for some of the years I was in college, in undergrad, I would literally go days without having to like check my email or doing this and that and the other. And I was just working and whatever. And I can just remember whole days of just like sitting on my couch and reading a book, and how that is so much harder for me to do now. And so I think one of the things that I want to do, I guess, is just try to find ways to just divorce myself from it for a little bit and just try to like focus on the things I want to do, because it's so hard. I mean, and the thing is, you're absolutely right what you were discussing earlier. This stuff is scientifically designed to be addictive. I mean, that's part of the business, because like you said, the product is you. So it's they take so much information. I wrote a paper for a philosophy of technology course I took in undergrad about this computer program that was developed in cooperation with a few corporations and then with the federal government, called Prism, and which became a big part of what became the Snowden leaks. But Prism was this like corporate, private, quasi-public, quasi-private relationship where the federal government, in connection with these other companies, would keep your bank records, your receipt transactions if you paid with a card, which is how like a company like Target, and you probably read about this story somewhere, but there was a story about how this dad somewhere figured out that his daughter was pregnant before she did based on the kind of ads that she got from Target, based on her purchasing. And that's not even social media. That's just going into a store and buying stuff with a card. And so, like, these are kinds of the things, like, it's very hard to... And
Justin, it's worse.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
worse. I have examples in my book. Listen, right now, a human resources person, you go in for a job interview, they legally cannot ask you, what is your religion? Or are you a member of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? They can't ask you these kind of personal things. But guess what? They don't have to anymore. I mean, there are firms now, there are businesses now. Their income is made by selling their services to corporations. They will give a score to a company that's interested. Say somebody's interested in hiring you. Well, that company can hire this firm, say, check out Justin, and they'll spit out a score. They will scour your social media activity over your life, and some algorithm spits out a score. And if that score is below whatever this company thinks, is their minimum, they won't even call you in for an interview. I mean, it is unbelievable. There's a firm in England that gives a service to landlords, rental property owners. If you want to rent an apartment, your social media activity, how you appear on social media, may determine whether or not you get that apartment or not. Think about that. Credit, lending, banks may increasingly rely on social media as a way to determine credit risk in people. Now you think, well, wow, this is crazy. How can that be and all? But that's where we're heading. And researchers have even shown that you can figure out something like sexuality based on less than 20 likes on Facebook. And that's excluding obvious likes, like if somebody likes a gay rights page or that kind of thing. I mean, just the kind of TV shows and the where they shop and stuff like that. It's bizarre. You and I would never be able to do it. But these algorithms that have the benefit of millions of people to crunch all this data together, they can see patterns and they can figure out who's gay and who's heterosexual and all that. And in America, hey, maybe that's no big deal, right? It might just be a marketing thing. But what about Saudi Arabia or, in Afghanistan? It might be a big deal, right? It might get you killed. Think about that. Think about what a dictator can do with these social media algorithms. They can pinpoint, with maybe 80% accuracy, who is a potential revolutionary, who may be disloyal, and not even today, but maybe disloyal a year from now, 10 years from now. So they could silence, the revolutionaries before they even speak up. They could stop the revolution before it starts, because they could just start jailing or eliminating people who show this tendency to be starting on the path toward rebellion, based on their social media activity. And again, in ways you wouldn't even think, it's the connections that you really, amazing things can happen with big data when you've got just overwhelming amounts of information that these algorithms, these computer programs can sort through and spit out these, scores and results. It is really frightening. I mean, the day may come soon, very soon, when, an algorithm knows, what you're going to eat for breakfast next Thursday and where you're going to be next year at this time on a Saturday, and whether or not you'll be married or divorced 5 years from now, with 94% accuracy or something. I mean, it's just unbelievable, where we're heading. It's kind of scary. I mean, there'll be great things that come out of it, great things, health, efficiency, wonderful things will come out of this big data revolution, but a whole lot of creepy things as well. So it's really something that people need to pay attention to.
Well, and it goes to a long-standing problem, which I think some people are trying to reverse it. I know some bigger sort of big name people. I know that Elon Musk has talked about this as well. Is the idea that our ethics concerning technology don't always keep the pace of the technological revolution itself, and so the thing that I am very interested in is how we
hold on.
Yeah.
First of all, our ethics haven't kept pace with technology. I mean, the Acheulean stone hand axe was probably used to bash a few heads in. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Okay.
that's always been a problem. That's
Okay.
few areas. But
Okay.
go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, I think you're totally right in the sense that our innovations don't always keep up with our ethical concerns. And one of the things that I know a lot of people have worried about is the social media's impact on politics. And the thing that I'm very worried about, and I've talked a lot about it on my podcast, is that one of the, I think the biggest problems facing our world today, and it's not just the United States, but I think it's around the world, is the rise of a sort of new authoritarianism and a retreat of sort of small L liberal democracy. I mean, we see it in Europe, we see it in the United States, and we're seeing it, I think, increasingly around the globe. And we were sort of sold on this idea that when the Cold War ended, that we would have sort of this new beacon of democracy. The democracy finally won, and that it is the ideal form of government, and that people were going to go towards this model. And what we've seen over the last, I think, few years is the rise of sort of the alt-right and white nationalism, and then obviously the Trump presidency and America, and then the rise of nationalism and people like Marine Le Pen in France, and the National Front government and things like that. Where does social media play into all of this? Because I do think that while social media has done a lot of good in terms of, when we were talking about like, the Arab Spring a few years ago, which sadly I think has turned into more of an Arab fall, if not winter, unfortunately. But where does politics play into this too?
Yeah, I wish I had a happy answer for you, but the real answer is that it's a mixed bag. I mean, the social media and the internet at large, it's a reflection of us. It's humanity. Okay, so that's why you've got hardcore pornography right next to a sweet little electronic greeting card to grandma, barreling down the information highway side by side. You've got nothing against hardcore. I'm not being judgmental about pornography or anything, but I'm just saying it's everything you can imagine about us, good and bad, is on the internet. It's who we are. It's us. It's a reflection of us. And social media is playing out exactly the same way. It's used to bring people together, to unite, to fight nonviolently for social progress, to be more free and to have more rights. Beautiful, wonderful things. We've seen that happen. But it's also being used to exploit people, to subdue people, to oppress people. It's a way to control people. So we're going to see it all. It's just sad to say. I wish I could be completely optimistic about it, but that's not realistic, and I won't be completely pessimistic about it either, because so much good can be done. At the end of the day, you know what it is? It's language. It's communication. We've always had social media, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. We had social media. It was called, words, grunts, and then words, And so this is another form of communication. And when humans communicate, they gossip, they help, they share, they uplift, and they push down, and they destroy, and they harm, and they hurt, and they kill. They do it all. We do it all. We're a complex, diverse species, and we still are haunted by our past, our evolutionary legacy and the thing. And we haven't come to grips with our irrational minds, the fact that we're so easily made afraid of things, that we're so, we struggle to, even though we're known for being so good at long-term planning, we're not that good at it, because we can't see or plan for much beyond the visible horizon. When we plan really well for the next 5, 10 years, but for the next century, for the next 1,000 years, we completely suck at it, even though we are intelligent enough to do so. But something about us just goes off the rails. We can't do it. We fall apart. We're afraid. We fracture ourselves. And social media will accommodate all of that just fine and dandy. But, hopefully the best we can hope for is that most of us will use it for good things. We will use it to uplift ourselves, to help our fellow humans more than hurt our fellow humans.
I think you're right. It reminds me of one of my favorite phrases from Ray Bradbury, which is that we are too soon from the cave, too far from the stars. And
Great line.
that's kind of how I feel about humanity in some respects. But we can definitely end on a more positive note, because you've been extremely generous with your time and with all the tech issues we've had tonight. What are you optimistic about? What makes you excited about the future?
Believe it or not, I am optimistic about humankind. I really am. And, it's strange coming from me. Like, if you could see my man cave, where I'm sitting in right now, I've got movie posters, Soylent Green, Vincent Price, The Last Man on Earth, all these like end of the world things, because I love
Yep.
apocalyptic,
Yep.
science fiction books and movies,
I have a
so
huge poster of Blade Runner in my office.
yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm always thinking about nuclear war, these kind of things. I'm very serious about it. I'm pretty knowledgeable about, realistic uh, existential threats, like super volcanoes, asteroids, viral plagues. I mean, these things can happen. They may happen. Some of them will happen. Matter of time. If we're not ready, if we don't figure something out, we're going to be in trouble. But I tell you, I'm optimistic. Overall, I'm optimistic. Not blindly, but I'm optimistic because, man, we're an amazing life form. We really are. All our failures and faults and stumbles, aside, we are astonishing. I mean, think about this. Every single one of us, 7.5 billion people, every single one of us has a 3-pound blob of electrochemical magic in his or her skull. I mean, we are, powerful thinkers. We can solve very difficult problems. We are infinitely creative. I mean, when you've got that, I just got to believe, there's a chance, there's a chance we can pull through these kind of dark ages that we're still in. We really are. I mean, we seem all high tech and fancy and everything, but we're still sort of in a dark age of sorts, and I think we just might be able to squeak through it. And then we're really going to be, something that's you could be much more proud of. I'm proud of us now, but it's very, it's, there's a big, huge, massive asterisk, that I have to put a long footnote under because I don't deny or overlook any of the horrors and the disgusting things about
Mm-hmm.
humankind, the things we do to each other, the things we are currently doing to the natural world. Insane how we are just demolishing ecosystems, just destroying the planet's biodiversity right now, which is insane because if you think about it, life is the ultimate treasure of this planet. You take away life, and we're just another rocky world, a dime a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
Life is the ultimate treasure of our world. And right now, we are just burning it up in a few generations as if it's, worthless. I mean, that is insane behavior. But, despite all these things, I still think that gosh, we can get there. I mean, think about it. Electric cars are coming, solar
Mm-hmm.
power, it's kind of coming, These things are happening. We've got people really thinking serious about maybe colonizing Mars. People are working on it, I mean, these kind of things. Universal income,
Yeah.
seriously being discussed now. There's just things going on, we've got ISIS and Al Qaeda running around wanting to blow up people on behalf of their imaginary friend. There's still terrible things going on everywhere too. And we can't overlook that. We have to keep confronting these very serious problems. But I tell you, at the same time, we're still looking up at the stars, and so I have hope. I really do.
That's great. I feel the same way. One of the central insights I took away a couple years ago when I read Michael Shermer's book, The Moral Arc, is the idea that we don't really live in utopia and we don't really live in dystopia. What he calls it is sort of a protopia, where we sort of gradually get better with certain things over time, and it's always maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but we're constantly there's certain things that we're constantly improving, like global hunger, the fact that there are a billion people today that don't live in extreme poverty that did 30, 35 years ago. There's certain things that we're working on that are getting better. But the thing is, it doesn't happen in leaps. It's sort of a slow paced sort of crawl, but we get there in time, in some respects. In others, we may not. But I feel the same way. I'm cautiously optimistic. This
Yeah.
is usually how I feel about it. So
Yeah. And also keep in mind, I mean, in the big picture, we're a very young species, compared to most life forms. We've come very far, very fast. Homo habilis, a little over 2 million years ago. I mean, anatomically modern humans, 200,000 years ago. That's nothing. That's a blink of the eye compared to, many, many life forms on this planet. I mean, we're still young. We're still in our childhood in a sense.
you're
We really,
absolutely.
fortunately, we are children with nuclear weapons. That's the problem.
Yeah, that
That's the
is the
problem.
worry. One thing I was thinking
That's the
about.
scary thing.
One thing I was thinking about the other day when we were, because I visited the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum recently, and I was showing my photos to my folks or whatever, and I realized that we went from the very first successful manned flight in 1908 with the Wright brothers, and then you have the moon landing in 1969.
Yeah,
So in
I think.
61 years, we went from a wooden plane out at Kitty Hawk, South Carolina, to being on the moon. Like
Yeah,
that's mind-boggling. And so some things are that fast. And that's the thing. I think you're absolutely right. And it's a crucial insight that yeah, yes, we do all these amazing things, but our brains really aren't that different from what they were, 10 to 20,000 years ago. So we're still stuck with that kind of thing. But I
yeah.
think that we get better all the time. So where can people find your work? And
Well,
when
first of all, let
yeah,
me tell you this, Justin.
yeah.
We are getting better. Many of us are getting better, and people like you are one of the reasons. You making the effort to do this podcast. You're trying to spread, science and reason and all. I mean, you're doing a noble service. You're trying to help uplift your species, and that's one of the best things a person can do with their life. So I commend you, man. Keep it up.
Well,
You
thank
really
you.
are, and I encourage everyone, any way you can, big ways, small ways, push in the right direction. Push towards uh, a more scientific mindset for everyone. Not that science is our new religion, not that scientists are some sort of infallible humans that we must trust on everything. By no means. But science is the most reliable way we have to sort out what works, what doesn't, what's real, what's not. We need to use it more, all of us, and reason. We need to become uh, a life form that is more devoted to reason, thinking through things, and not being so emotional and instinctual. And everyone, everyone can help with that. Live your life as an example. Encourage others to be more reasonable, rational in their lives. Call out nonsense when you see it. Do it politely. You don't have to be mean or aggressive about it. Do it because you care. I always tell people, you know, skeptics a lot of times have this rep of being jerks and mean to people and all that. I'm not. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I bend over backwards to try to be nice to people. I mean, it's kind of just my natural personality, but I understand that it's counterproductive. When you're mean or aggressive to somebody, they just dig in deeper and they hold on tighter to their crazy beliefs. So you got to respect the emotions. You got to respect the human being. Hate the belief, love the believer. That's the attitude you got to have if you want to get somewhere, make the world a little better. All right. So anyway, my website's guypharrison.com. You can find me there. I've got an author page on Amazon. Just look me up on there, Guy P. Harrison, Barnes and Noble. My books are in all the bookstores, many libraries. Next book coming out, a couple of weeks. It's Think Before You Like, all about social media, and it is loaded with essential information that everybody really should be aware of. I mean, there's so much going on the internet behind the scenes on these social media platforms that you don't see, you don't realize, and you can use them, you can have fun with them, be productive with them, but you better be smart about it, or bad things might happen.
Well,
I'm working on a
definitely.
new book now, by the way. I'll mention
Oh
real quick.
yeah.
I'm really excited about writing it right now, deep into it. It's it's called At Least Know This: Essential Science to Enhance Your Life, and it's all about just the kind of basic stuff about our existence, that most people really don't know, but should, because I think it kind of opens up your eyes and makes you more alive and awake and more excited to be a thoughtful life form, in the 21st century. It's things like, where do we come from? How did humans get here? Like, who are we? What are we made out of? How did we evolve? How did we make it from being hunter-gatherers to being these people living in cities? What happened? What's the deal here? And because there's a lot to that story people don't realize. How, things like, how are we connected to the natural world? Many people aren't aware of the fact that there's a deep, intimate connection between human beings and plant life and animal life on this planet. And I don't even mean in a kind of hippie tree hugger sense. I mean in a real, hardcore science sense. We need nature. We're part of it. It's part of us. Things like, where are we located? Where are we? Simple question, right? Where are we? Very few people can answer that. Where are we in our galaxy? Where are we located? Where are we in the universe? How old is the Earth? How old is your home, the Earth? Most people can't answer that question. It's just amazing. Basic knowledge people don't have. And it's not about having a bunch of trivia in your head. I really do believe that this is essential knowledge that enhances your life. It makes you more excited to be alive when you kind of see this amazing construct, this weirdness of the universe that's around us. Every human being is mostly air, empty space, because that's what atoms are. That's bizarre. We're mostly water and empty space. I mean, that's you. You're a persistent pattern of ever-changing atoms. I mean, it's weird. It really is, and it's cool.
Reminds me of that internet meme of humans are just celery with anxiety.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But that's really
that's
cool.
A fun book. I'm really enjoying writing that. That'll be out next summer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Think Before You Like. Be out. It's available for pre-order now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but it'll be in bookstores like Barnes & Noble and all that in about 2 weeks.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely.
Listen, and one more, and I really, honestly, I'm not a guy who just begs people to buy books because I want to make a buck or something. But listen, this book, I really believe in it. Think Before You Like. So, if you can't afford it or you don't want to waste the money on it, or something, go to a library and find a copy and read it, because the more people who get this information, the better off we'll be, as a society, as a world, because it's not a good thing for anybody, for all of us, for a whole society, if a significant number of people are allowing themselves to be just constantly misled and exploited through social media. So, get the book, read it, please.
Definitely. I'm going to be pre-ordering my copy. And I think what we're going to do for the show is I'm going to go ahead and pick up 2 copies, and we're going to give one out as a giveaway for our listeners.
That's cool.
So we're gonna do that. My buddy and we've been talking about doing giveaways. I think this would be a perfect book to do it with. Guy, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I just immensely appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
No, Justin, thank you for inviting me, man. I believe in your podcast. I believe in you. So keep up the good work, man.
Thank you so much.
Job. And the world needs you.
I really appreciate it. And you're definitely welcome back when the next book comes out next summer.
All right, man. Anytime. I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Take care.
Okay, bye.
And that was my conversation with Guy P. Harrison. To pick up his newest book, the link is in the description box. That's it for Reason Revolution this week. Please subscribe to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. If there's a platform you listen to podcasts on that I'm not on, please let me know, and I'll try to make it happen. Send us your feedback at reasonrevolutionpodcast@gmail.com. Also follow our Facebook page at facebook.com/reasonrevolution. You can also visit our brand new website, reasonrevolution.org. That's capital R on Reason, capital R on Revolution, capital O on org. To keep up on all episodes, blogs, and additional content, the link will also be in the description box. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at The Daily Clark. And until next week, this has been Justin Clark, and this has been Reason Revolution.